Democrat lawmakers are calling for billions of dollars in new spending on so-called contact tracing, as the controversial program appears to be losing momentum. One America's Kristian Rouz looks into the matter.
Build that capacity for isolation, contact tracing, and self-quarantine. That's fundamental. We're working hard to do that.
The nationwide effort to impose contact tracing on millions of Americans is falling behind schedule amid controversy and privacy concerns. In his congressional testimony Tuesday, CDC Director Robert Redfield said only 28,000 contact tracers have been hired across the U.S. so far, out of at least 100,000 needed by September. This despite expectations of elevated unemployment encouraging people to spy on their fellow citizens for a paycheck, but the plan is faltering.
For testing and contact tracing, we're going to need billions of dollars. I mean, that's the amounts of investment that we're doing partially through CDC.
Tuesday's joint hearing at the House Energy and Commerce Committees sparked discussions on the controversial initiative. Republican lawmakers say contact tracing may trigger a pushback by a significant share of the American public, while the program appears to be extremely costly as well. Earlier this year, Congress allocated $25 billion to coronavirus testing and contact tracing, but Democrats say it's not enough, and they want $75 billion more for
not only testing to specifically identify people in the identify, isolate, and contact trace, but also much more surveillance.
On top of this, Congress is still discussing the Democrat-proposed bill to enforce mandatory contact tracing on the federal level. The bill, known as Trace Act, gained notoriety on social media over what some call its sinister number, H.R. 6666.
I have introduced a bill, the Trace Act, which calls for $100 million for testing and contact tracing. Should we be seeking a larger amount, $100 million or more for contact tracing?
Critics point out the US underwent a crippling lockdown, as well as inconsistent messaging on face masks and quarantine, and then the vaccine. And yet, the Democrats are now amplifying reports of the so-called second wave of COVID-19, which they say can only be defeated with more surveillance, isolation and shutdowns.
The same people who were demanding more testing are now screaming that we must shut the economy down because these tests, which are notoriously unreliable, are showing more coronavirus cases. This is a disease that 99.9% of the people who are infected with survive.
And while the discussions continue, contact tracing appears to be facing mounting obstacles, while its benefits are still unclear at best. Kristian Rouz, One America News.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.